Hello, my name's Bianca and I'm part of the team at Community Courtyard, and we are based at the Yard, 62 Gold Street in Northampton. And what we're doing is we're going to be starting up our story time section. For those of you who don't know, on a Monday evening, we get together as a group of people and one of us reads a book and then we have a chat about it, see how we felt. So it's a bit like a book club, but you don't have to do the reading. Someone reads it out loud to you. And then what we thought was, as well as having that virtual space where people can talk about the books, maybe it would be a nice experience if every evening around 7 o'clock, we actually had a story time section. So I'm going to start that off. So we're going to be reading this book. That reminds me. I've not read it before, so it's going to be new for all of us. And as I'm reading, do feel free to put any comments in the comment section, or if you've got anything you want to talk about with us, then don't forget that you can text us on 07925 730 772, or you can email us shout@communitycourtyard.org. Okay, let's begin. That reminds me. To scathe walls of black and white, it is the crime of the Tainted Man. Author's notes. This is the story of Kay. If you find yourself within the pages of this book, you are holding the pen and not me. Awareness. Anansi, your 4 gifts raised to you, Naomi grants you no power over the stories I tell. Stories that build like dew, alerting you, but creating no music when they drop onto the drums of our sky. Take my gift, words bound in time, directly to him, and tell me if his features betray recognition or sorrow. 1. He was the only one who didn't laugh. She stepped onto the escalator, thinking it could sweep her away, swallow and shred her at the bottom. He would watch as he jumped off like a schoolgirl, brown skirt waving in the memory, and wait to see her smile like a morning. The shine of his morning cleaning. But her slow pace meant the last he saw of her was as she turned around the corner of the underground, and he was carried away by the indifference of the train. One evening, he decided the strain of longing for love outweighed the strain for longing for home. So in the morning, after watching her nervous dance with the escalator, he stood in the middle of the train doors, arms wide open, holding them open, waiting for her. Turning the corner, she saw her Samson and ran towards him. It became their right, until train doors became bolted locks and Chubbs in the door of a flat. He loved her enough to turn off the lights before bed. Though she could sleep with brightness, bills kept her awake. He took care of that too. She helped him become a man. Let him use her calling card to speak to his mother while he pounded fufu, vigorous as he shook the stove. Then maybe they kissed. Maybe they laughed. Maybe he did love my mum from the start. 2. My mum suffocated under the pool of light for the imperial sun. So my life begins with a nose broader than the wing on which I was weighed. But blessings are missed on the ward where whales are watered down by gaps of meconium. So to breathe, my mum thought. I needed to be streamlined. Without sense, my nose was pressured by 2 fingers to fix the box of Europe, the centre of my face growing close, comforting the holes in my appearance. Unknown abuse was being moulded for progress, a model given by God on which my mother could add the finishing touches, a joint project on which to project embedded insecurities. So now I breathe, British airs with airs akin to royal hairs, and my mum thought she was making a dark life fair. 3. Watch the little boy bopping up and down on his father's lap, no one caring if he falls or where he'll land. And you'll think the boy has no chance, no way to change what's to become of his life. His father wrote his destiny on the back of a betting slip, fixing it, and now he plays roulette with his boy, watching the numbers, wondering what difference it makes where the ball settles. His father smacks his hand as he reaches for a button. He's not allowed to roll the dice or send the ball spinning, only an observer. Black or red, eyes closed while he's winning. 4. London homes were closed to young foreboding darkness, and so were the doors of a family letting go of the past. Once I'm in care, my mum occasionally picks me up. I can't recall how I got there. There's 6 of us, 3 who soak their beds, me looking on thinking they're confused as to which way their tears should flow, and 2 who stand with me in the bathroom, water running but clothes still on, forced hands down my trousers. I learned to clip my nails, daydreaming about my foster mother trimming hers, and cut and hurt, index and thumb pressed onto my lobe while I misbehaved. Or there was a raised pain, a light cracking sound, no atmospheric stomach rumble as I think back. A white hand raised to strike black skin. How can the truth and my love not begin to lose synergy? So facile, it was so easily flammable. The jet left and my mum's hearty inhales. They were enough to spark my curiosity. So I watched as my thumb gaze rise to light, delivering the dissolving tissue to the plastic bin of our leftovers. There wasn't enough time for ashes to be born, but I stepped back in awe with the flaming wings rising to the ceiling. The fire was out, with the air to spare. My foster mother's age, containing vitality but doused to flames, spread a jug of water, then taken me to the fridge. She held onto my arm while cutting a Scotch bonnet, and then rubbed it into my face to burn off that troublesome nose and the thick black lips that talked back. I was in bed early. I tried to sleep. The dripping tap haunted me with promises of solace, and I stayed where I was, and I cried. In the morning, when I opened my eyes, the hot residue was gone, and the bed for summer visits spoke with relief as my foster mother sat up, fully clothed, and looked at me. 5. Dry, I felt no pain as I watched dense balls of fluff fall to the floor, and my foster friend, brother really, sweep them up, eager to be involved. He'd experienced a few cuts, but now his head was covered in scabs. Pressed hair, cultural significance dried up. So every time someone was getting a trim, there he'd be, broom in hand, waiting for the 4C weeds to tumble to the floor. I once watched him put my hair in his pocket and inhale it behind a door. My scalp had some sores on too, but the pulped tangle of my hair kept it a secret from 1A carers. I had no reason to wonder about it. When the hair was cut over and I slid off the chair, immediately forgetting my fro, there were no puffs of hair to cushion my steps. The drawers sweeping them away, done so well. I felt lucky only to get the snip because I'd seen the fits of the suffering gals. Soft hair falling like floss, no fro to swell. White hands going onto black hair, but never acknowledging the curls. 6. I've never smiled again like I did on my 6th birthday, looking into the camera while my foster mother guides my hand through a symbolic slashing of years. I could feel the failing elasticity, in my hand and the smell dissolving lungs on her breath. My foster dad, a quiet favourite, dozes, tired from a job I've never known him to have. Some kids are only here for the summer. I watch them, unconsciously thumbing my singed hair, a scar from separated kin, and melding with warmth severed too late, and remembered what loss feels like. deciding to stay around faces awaiting the same school as I am. I've crunched through several chocolate cornflake cakes before I remember I've got presents to unwrap. I walked to the gifts, eager but satisfied, hung in the soft cereal stuck to my teeth. I noticed the handwriting on the first present, and I retreated to my foster mother's leg. All right, dear. We'll open this one later. 7. He wasn't A's real dad or carer, so I struggled to place him in fostered thoughts. He liked sitting with his legs crossed in our living room eating cheese sandwiches. His posture, chewing in satisfaction, made me envious, made me want to bite from the same plate that he did. His full stomach moaned, enough to make my crave. The cheese in the extreme, Mazu dripping and crawling through my dreams. She always gets asked for a piece and is refused and told to go and get ready. Now both of them gone, my mum, preoccupied with plucking pheasant, argued the crust left in the saucer, which often had teeth-marked slices of cheese between them. A day came when I was able to open the fridge and take out cheese, which first refused my knife. Knowing the rules of the house, take 2 pieces of bread and create what was slowly becoming a delicacy. I took a bite, and the static in my jaw shuddered through my body. I bent over the bin and spat out what I desperately sought, realizing getting what you want is not always what you thought. 8. Thin lips beneath a film of moisture. My foster mother trying to teach me how to pronounce letters of the alphabet. We flipped through Biff and Chip, me waiting for the parts with Wilma. Turning keys was fascinating to me, so I clutched one and strolled off like a schoolboy, leaving the house, searching for hours to help the bathroom door speak once more. I joined the family, but bored. I placed my hands in my pockets and feel something cold and hard. I must own it. I stepped towards the table where my foster mother sits, regal, smoking, while the sound of her children opening and closing doors, pacing around and climbing bunk beds, combined with her nicotine, a heightened effect dulled by the chain smoking. I took the key. I confess, and I expect a cane, but I'm freed and taught the importance of honesty. Passive presence has the RP of a pen to paper. I envied the dexterity denied to me, the first difference of ability I noticed between myself and others. My foster mother finds pages of failed attempts, notes of a voice failing in speech therapy, pain, straining imprinted on paper. She forces me to look at my writing, pointing at sentence after sentence. Her finger finally rested on a tear absorbed, covering my shame, and then tells me my handwriting is lovely without the fancy lines. 9. My seat-belted body rose with the bumps, and with each bump, dinner for the following day was decided. Pheasant, like rabbit, was delicious more than cute, and the smell of farmlands and my fascination as we drove meant only chicken, pork, and beef was barbaric. Tea time followed by dinner time, the table spread with homemade marmalade and jam. Berries I picked myself, in between intervals of wiping up behind me with what I hoped would not sting me. Blackberries were the easiest to find. It was evident from the black stains on my teeth. My foster mother, becoming Ghanaian for a second, in asking why I was acting like I didn't have anything to eat. There were blocks of jelly I dreamed of sinking my teeth into, unprepared, but still of as appetizing as bar of chocolates, destined to be melted and mixed in a collection of cornflakes and spooned into the paper casing. My birthday was approaching. On days where our village was tearful for my loneliness, I wore Wellingtons and jumped in puddles, imagining the same miracle that touched the delightful wardrobe. The air smelled like horses, nowhere in sight. until we'd take a trip in the van and someone would scream, pointing to the first black beauty they'd ever seen. Trees were planted on my arrival. As I left, petitions were passed around. This countryside melody played so loudly, it was years before the sounds of boots on mud and friendly good mornings were taken over by the sirens and the smell of booze and latex. A door buzzing instead of not, faces that were not hostile but indifferent. Then, what does a persistent cough mean to a young boy who is sick? He thought it brought them closer, always together but holding on to words that never rose beyond the swirling smoke that stained the ceiling. A burning kept inside. He never said, I love you, because he sat with her when no one else would, watched TV and listened to the brown floating leaves in the breathing, trickling down her throat, and he tried his best during the darkest moments to see their reflection in whatever was screening. Her feelings meant a lot to him. So when feet scratched and scuffed the floor, children escaping to play outside, he stayed. And he listened to her finish the sentence she started. His love was listening and hearing her weak voice address an empty house, punctuated by the unexpected, persistent coughs that would make any eye water. Never believing that the day he left was the day that the countryside sky would call her. Too naive to know that with every inhale, the summit drew close, and her halo glow meant smoke was signaling her home. If only he had known it was cancer revealing her bones. If only he had known that it was the offspring of smoke that brought her to tears, not her being happy her son was so near. His visits to London lengthened as tumour and organs grew fonder. I keep missing your company after dinners. I wish you could have stayed a little longer. That's the third chapter read, and that chapter was called Awareness. How did you find that? We've got a bit more time, so let's skip on to the next chapter. And this is called Reflection. Vanity. Though we are similar, you are selfish with stories, and I share mine freely. I rapped on your door with unwrapped tales, tying nothing up as intended, but your father still ignores me, and I will touch the threads of your web once more and ask that you pass on my words to the sky that we both adore. But my bookmarks fell out of the book then. Apologies. My aunt's floor became a blow-up bed we sank into every night and hoped to rise above, where I dreamed above the hard surface I'd come from. No heels hit the pavement in the morning air, but I couldn't tell the difference. I didn't know we were poor because the preserves of savoury hors d'oeuvres, Jacob's, were so satisfying. I could stomach at least 12 every time, scrambling to eat my own crumbs. I was happy to share my mother's hair rollers, presenting as the girl she'd always wanted. But truthfully, they were fashioned for her, but soldiers for me. I'd pull up the clip part and bend it over the roll, arms ready for war, green versus pink, with my remotes on standby, ready to change it all. Silent, watching for the brawl. Tottenham was beyond our balcony, and every football match I'd hear the crowd shout for me, though I would turn my back uninterested. We held onto our superstitions, tight as our silver. A few coins gathered to mix the Ferreira with the match, but often dry rivulets on my cheeks invited pound coins and 50 pences from strangers that I'd have to throw away as soon as I got off the bus. A nervous flick of my hand as a disguise. To be generous was suspicious to the religious, a cultural fusion, that a paradox of Christianity. I waited for friends while my mum waited for him. Our door was on the 9th floor, but I was sure acquaintances would float through our window before my mum felt gentle, now impatient, pressed on a foreign body she once had. And she knew it, so she cried, but not for the same tears for the tongues that were brought forth by Christ. As long as I've got my God, Kate, everything is all right. In these moments when James Avery, ready for an embrace, would flash before my eyes, All I could think about was my friend who had lied, with words so sure he'd restored a shadow, one but only seemed to be looking over me, and told me that every person had a dad. This was compounded by the lie that you can't miss something you haven't had. My mum and I stand at a stop, same one she said my dad had almost been picked up from, with his tight jeans and his Rick James sex appeal, that I wish he'd passed on to me. And coincidentally, where she believed an angel told her the world isn't hers to worry about. I had my hands around her thick coat, trying my best to feel some warmth, a more maternal form of affection that she can't hold back from me. I'm wrong. She pushes me away, and I notice her breath in the cold air, a horizontal stream fading as it ascends in imitation of the smokers. I focus on that, remembering another mum and trying not to feel the scorch of her scorn. I'm forced to feel warmth. The bus arrives after 5 minutes, and while I'm sitting, I'm offered another pound coin. One, I'm imagined making a sharp sound on the icy floor when I'm forced to throw it away. Two, my first day of school, a boy in year 6 asked me if I'm a rude boy. I'm not rude, I think, and I carry on watching the girls play marbles, waiting for the right moment to ask if I can join in. I have a cat's eye, but they ask how I can see through my dark skin. On the second day, the only student who will talk to me tells me to undo my shirt's top button, roll up my sleeves, and walk with a bop. There's no official school uniform, but second-hand shirts and trousers are cheaper than tracksuits. So I always look smart and I'm ready to learn. And this, the boy informed me, makes me a bod. The transformation helps. On the third day, a girl in year 6 takes me around a corner, touches my face, and kisses me. Her lips are soft as they press against mine. It feels like nectar when the pressure is trickling down my chin to glance out to my chest, and suddenly I love her. I love London best. After a few weeks, my classmates are less hesitant to talk to me, and soon even my teacher addresses me without smirking at my clothes, my clogged shoes, and my constantly split bottom lip. I'm told my breath smells like an African. I take the insult with baptized eyes, seeing who I am, unable to rebut it, but as I lift my head and my hand to cut my mouth, I could smell last night's soup on my fingertips. It's past lunchtime, so I lick them clean, unsure if I'm trying to savor the taste to subdue my speaking stomach, unsatisfied with the ham sandwich packed for lunch, or if I'm embarrassed, revealed to be an African who eats with his hands. Some days I try to play football, but I've never been picked because I do something that's called toe punt. So I sit behind the goal and I dig a stick into the grass, trying to create a grave for the ants and passerbys. Maybe I'll join their march. I'm still in love with the girl in year 6. A teacher caught us pressed up together behind a skip, and I haven't seen that girl again. I'm in year 3. So now I just play with my sticks, and I watch the boys running after the football, and I think about the next person who will want to be my friend. 3, the colour purple. I sat so close to the TV, I could feel and hear the static. I felt it shuffling around down my face. My hands were tightly grasping the covers. I imagined my grip had turned yellow, sheets white, mirroring my desire for the fight for breath and bloody choking of the mister. I watched as fresh from broken leather, the blade hung in the air, stealing kisses from his Adam's apple. With his head back, Celia moved in close to carve out control while he waits for the first stroke. The blade moist, beads of sweat, fear instruments, even nervous in his presence. The lava, complicit, exposed his skin, so all it took was to ignore personal morality and hold your breath as the turpitude took over. Cut him open, what helped to keep his head high? I sat on the edge of my bed. A bed moved into the living room, where robbed men, sitting for supper, watched sand surface in our eyes. Now my mum was asleep beside me, grinding her teeth, as Celia was caught from behind, pulled out of a dream and made to walk into a nightmare. I fell asleep without watching it all, without seeing it all through to the end. But for days after, I would depict the mistress' death with my pen, a dark blue mood. Purple was pain, bruised and beaten. Suddenly, it wasn't just my suffering confined to my pad. I wrote out other people's, her suffering. It added to my suffering until the last drops of my ink gave us both a father nobody had had. 4. My aunt's feet beat the road, catching us just before we boarded a bus, handing over a different videotape. That's Golden Child, she said, and this is Coming to America. Revealed that my interest settled beyond seeing the inside of electronics, my mum let me sit in front of the TV, rewinding and playing the first movie she saw me pay attention to. References to clean dicks and cartoon breasts with no sense of gravity streamed by as I waited for the end of the film. Watching Eddie Murphy marry his queen. He was Eddie to me because I believe his video was playing back something I couldn't remember, something that kept me quietly thinking when I wasn't rewinding to see the prince remove the cover of a rosy-lipped sunrise. Love speaks on. While sex needs time to breathe, and it was the echo of someone who loved me that kept me from thinking I needed to get a word in on my destiny. Feelings uninterrupted. I rewind the videotape just one more time. 5. My mum watches me bite the skin on the inside of my lip, places her palm on my hand, and lowers my fist. Listen to me, Kay. The world is not yours. Her words opened up into a bus stop on Tottenham High Street. My mum looks up the road, weaving protected by the quick safe bag, trying to wheel the digits that can open doors to get her home. Her nail polish is cracked, splintered by her first work and then by her nerves. Floors are clean, but her character is still a dream. Besides, where she stands is a path that leads anywhere the foreign may choose, and peering into the area, stripped of light, a silhouette, an outline where no rain seems to fall. Out walks the figure, dry, catching no one's eye but hers. They lower their hands onto her curved fingers, hold. But the chill creates warmth, moving away from them, her mouth as she splits the last bit of her nail varnish from her lips. Who does the word belong to? They ask. Not you. So, why do you worry? These are the closing words. Nothing more is said. Hey, you think I saw them again? My tongue circles the inside of my mouth, tasting the metallic of the bitten sores, and the pressure of my jaw eases. This is her favourite story. I don't see her leave. My mum, having passed those words to me again. 6. In the same hall where all nights murmured with prayers and bargains to God and I stand against a wall, looking on at all of the colours, the patterns that embellish the robes my aunts and uncles wear. The music imbibed shakes ancestors alive and permits only one dance, a side-to-side shimmy, causing partners to slowly eddy. My uncles become aunts and aunts' uncles, bodies representing a language where gender has no use. She watched me, my mum, with a gesture, saying, come. Bottom lip unturned, eyebrows raised, hands swaying by her sides, and an apology in her eyes. We thought today was here, in the hall where prayers still linger, white handkerchiefs in the air waving them away, and lumber voices cause its waist to limber. She looks like her mother, but my body understanding where my tongue can't reach. Giving in to the cloth's impression, I approach. My steps wanted to forgive. Our bodies get close. Not one of us is speaking. No one is resisting. The music becomes a whisper as our dancing speaks and listens. 7. Our flat contains thoughts of God, my dad and Daniel O'Donnell. Country music called my mum, while the home lad had a western hand to keep its thing quiet. Its palm, giving off the odour of corroded shovel and dirt, Irish accents and twee becomes interchangeable during a signed, obsessed period of British life, and Give a Little Love becomes more of a clutch for capital. A tune dying before most could hear. My mum danced, rhythmic with moves beyond the confining and shanty shuffle, sliding on a tape worn out by thousands of steps, a tape that refused to give while my mum swayed to its cassettes. I stayed by the player, watching in love with fusion of the mother and music, my finger raised, ready to take it all back, keeping everything in time, or possibly pause a moment when there was no other life to define. Musical notions fell to splash in leaked puddles. The poverty of home became music with Daniel O'Donnell. My mum called his face, the only mirror of virtual. That he sang words like that. It could never be in their nature to hurt you. And that is where we're going to leave it this evening. We're going to continue with this book tomorrow. Let me know in the comments what you thought about the first few chapters. I'm really looking forward to continuing the story tomorrow. So do join us on Twitch, on Facebook, or on YouTube. And have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.